You can only become logistically proficient to a degree in football. You can kind of like position yourself in certain places, but if someone's just that much bigger, stronger, and faster than you, they're probably going to win.
Yeah.
But in jiu-jitsu, the smaller guy can win because he can position himself in these mechanical advantages. A lot of martial artists have taken from animals, especially like people in Kung Fu.
Yeah.
They would actually they would watch animals and watch how animals kill one another in order to become the best of themselves at killing. That's why a lot of their technique are named after animals. A theory of why we dream and why we dream sometimes horrible things is because if you can go through the sleep, like the world is a scary place, especially for like hunter-gatherers. And if you dreamt of horrible things, when you wake up, you're like, oh, it's not so bad, even though it might be that bad. That's kind of like the thing we do. If you like are able to run a marathon, then running a few miles isn't that bad. Hey everyone, I'm Chad the Dad.
And I'm Jade the Babe.
And welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu Juice on X Martial. This podcast will be about Jiu-Jitsu theory, Jiu-Jitsu philosophy, Jiu-Jitsu motivation, Jiu-Jitsu news. I used to have a channel doing something very similar, so if you're following me over from that channel, this is where I'm going to be at. And so welcome to X Martial. I love X Martial. I'm part of the X Martial team now. And so here we go.
Here we go.
I'm going to have a lot of people on the channel as the weeks go on, but you're gonna see Jade the Babe as a regular. She's a competitor. She's owned a jiu-jitsu gym because we owned a gym together. She's got 4 kids. We got a lot to talk about: how to navigate jiu-jitsu when you don't have time, how to make time for jiu-jitsu, how to navigate relationships and jiu-jitsu. Yeah, so she's a great host to have on here. And of course, if you don't know much about me, I have a lot of accomplishments in the competition realm. I owned a school, and now I'm working with X Martial, which I freaking love. And so I think we have a very unique way of approaching jiu-jitsu, how jiu-jitsu hits us in our personal lives, but also like the way we navigate jiu-jitsu is a lot differently than I think a lot of other schools or a lot of other people perceive jiu-jitsu. And so I try to take that unique perception that we have and evaluate it, and maybe we can express it here in a way that can help a lot of other people. The first thing, what is jiu-jitsu? And the short answer to that being a martial art, right? If I said, Jade, what is a martial art and what makes you a martial artist? What is the distinction?
I think that you're practicing and learning a skill to further develop either a self-defense skill or just being aware of your surroundings and your body mechanics. I would say that would kind of be what I would think a martial artist is, and just understanding all the dynamics of how to protect yourself and defend, and then also how to choke some people out too.
Okay. So if we were to talk about martial, martial, actually, it's similar to the word Mars because Mars was the god of war, right? And so it's about being like a killer, about being a warrior, right? To be a martial artist, right, means to be a warrior, but an artist at being a killer, right?
Yeah.
And what does an artist mean?
I believe an artist is bringing your own creativity into the sport.
An expression of something that makes you human.
Yes.
Right? One of the big distinctions that we have as humans is that we are able to create art, be able to think of something abstractly and create something.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, if you look in a dictionary, they'll usually with a utensil or with an object or with an instrument. So that's kind of something that doesn't make it distinct necessarily, but the ability to create something of your own volition and have it be appreciated by others, so on and so forth. So if we look at the term just by itself, being a martial artist is you are using creativity and you're becoming the most skilled in manifesting the expression of killing somebody else. What's interesting is we think of it as self-defense. But really, when you go back to the literal term of a martial artist, it's the ability to destroy your enemy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To the most articulate degree that you are being compared to in connotation with an artist.
Yeah.
So why is an artist special? Because they're unique, they're distinct, they're special. They've done something that nobody else has done to capture your attention. So when you're a martial artist, what makes you, the artist there, is like you're unique at killing somebody, you know?
Yeah.
It's a realism that we don't really come into terms with
Yeah.
a lot.
That's true.
I've broken this definition down to another level, is because being an artist is what distinguishes you from being an animal. Not the only thing, but it's one of the things that's like animals can't create art. Animals can mimic things, but they can't create something out of nothing. Even most animals, if not all animals, kill. They either kill the grass or they kill other animals, so on and so forth. So the artist is what makes you unique as a species in this world. A lot of martial artists have taken from animals, especially like people in Kung Fu.
Yeah.
They would actually they would watch animals and watch how animals kill one another in order to become the best in themselves at killing. That's why a lot of their technique are named after animals, where they'll mimic what the animal is doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and to be deadly.
Yeah.
Right, but what made them human was the artist form of it. In your brain, right, you have the fight or flight, right, the animalistic part of your brain. This, I believe I'm saying the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, things, and that's kind of like your fight or flight and your survival.
Okay.
Right? And then you have your more developed part of the brain, which is like your prefrontal cortex or your frontal cortex, and your neocortex, which kind of like surrounds the brain. And a lot of this is where you store information. It's the place where you do a lot of your rational thought, your logistics, your reasoning.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you're doing something like a martial art, when you're doing jujitsu, for example, a lot of what makes you successful and why people love it, I think, is because you're becoming logistically proficient. You can only become logistically proficient to a degree in football. You can kind of like position yourself in certain places, but if someone's just that much bigger, stronger, and faster than you, they're probably going to win.
Yeah.
But in jiu-jitsu, the smaller guy can win because he can position himself in these mechanical advantages, right?
I see what you're saying.
And so what's really cool is a lot of people are attracted to that because it's a lot more than being an athlete.
Yeah.
It's being a martial artist.
Yeah.
It's being strategic.
Yeah.
And I think strategy and technique wins at the end of the day.
100.
Right? I think when somebody attacks you, or you go into a situation where it's life or death or stress, your body cannot differentiate a social threat from a physical threat. So what happens is your body pumps you with those same animalistic or reptilian hormones and chemicals to be like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I need to defend myself with everything.
Yeah.
Right? So it shuts down and it's ready to fight or it's ready to flight. Fight or flight, a lot of people use different terminology for that. But regardless, it's the same thing. It's you're being dumped with those hormones to allow you to survive. And all rationality, all rational thought goes out the window.
Yeah.
So when we become a martial artist, what we are doing is we are trying to separate ourselves from that. We are trying to stay in the human part of our brain for as long as possible. So the more stress that somebody puts on us, the less likely we're going to go into a fight or flight.
Remaining calm and
Remaining
like fighting.
calm.
There's so much more to that.
And
right?
that's when our martial arts, that's where our technique and our strategy is stored in these areas. So if we have like our animal, like just fight, be fierce and be aggressive is over here. And then over here, we have our rationality. The more stressed we get, the more we move to the animalistic part of our brain.
Yeah.
But the calmer we stay, the more in the logistics and rational and talented part of our brain we go to. It's really cool to have in jiu-jitsu because it's very physical, but it's usually the logistics that win.
Yeah.
The approach and the strategy. So how I've been defining being a martial artist, and as we talked about, an artist making you the human, you know what I mean? Something expressed that's uniquely human at the same time as killing, which all other animals have. It's like you have the ability to be the most dangerous animal, but the most dangerous human, and you get to remain human as that's happening. What makes you a martial artist then, if we consider all this? And I say your ability to remain human regardless of the situation, all the way up until it's a martial matter, right? So you and I are about to battle each other. Let's say we're trying to kill each other. By the way, I would never kill my wife.
I would never kill my husband.
Look for me in the woods.
It's where he said he wanted to be.
That's true. Just hypothetically, we're not married. You and I are trying to kill each other. The more apt I am, or the more capable, or the capacity rather, I have to remain in the human part of me, right? The more successful I am as a martial artist. And so that's my definition of what makes you a martial artist.
Okay.
That's what I want to be.
That's really cool. I never really thought of it in that way. It just seemed more and more that I was coming into that because of understanding the adrenaline effect and like, how do I manage that adrenaline? But like what you're saying right there is like, this is how we manage the adrenaline,
Right.
to realize that it is just adrenaline,
Right.
and realize that you're still human, and how can you come into that. And I think it's cool how everyone has different perspectives of how we express the things that we're trying to say, but that's
Absolutely.
a really very cool way to say that.
Yeah, like I used to think of these things as being an athlete. You know what I mean? Defending myself. And they all had these own little categories that didn't touch each other, like these little compartments. But now that I've really delved into it,
Yeah.
I really think that it's like this blend. And if you want to become the most human that you could possibly be, it's becoming the peak martial artist.
Yeah.
Because in what other situations are going to test you to the limit that like somebody else trying to strangle you or somebody else trying to beat the shit out of you? That's going to cause the most stress on you, or a lion trying to attack you, right?
Yeah.
And so how could you emulate that in real life? And what better than a combat sport that allows you to go 100% on each other constantly? How do you practice becoming a better martial artist?
Yes.
It's putting yourself in those situations where somebody is trying to physically harm you.
Yeah.
And not only can you combat that, but perhaps win and take away their ability to harm you and increase your ability to harm them.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is what makes you a deadly human, a martial artist, but distinctly human.
Yeah.
You know, by taking what you know, what makes you different from animals, by taking your ability to use abstract thinking, prediction, patterns, recognition, and then inject that or infuse that into your animal aspect of your physical capacity to cause harm. By digging into that, I think actually makes you more human than most things possibly could.
Obviously, we all like look at people, right? But like when you walk in a room and you see this room and you're like, these people are killers.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but like being able to be like, wow, this guy is 6'2", 150, but I could take him.
Yeah.
You know, like I was like, if you're able to like do that and you come into a room, especially for a woman, and knowing that like, oh, this big guy, like Taylor, you know, you're like, oh, I'm fine. Like, yeah, let's go, man. Obviously, if someone's going 100%, that's going to be a little different. But just being able to learn those skills and have another able body to do that, because how else are we going to learn?
Exactly. Now, remove ourselves directly from the martial artist, and let's just talk about life in general.
Okay.
So, in life, how many things stress you out? Traffic stresses you out. And then when you get overwhelmed by traffic, you've lost the human part of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So many more things are sending you into stress responses, especially if you have PTSD or you know, prior traumas. There's so many things in this world that send you into stressors, into a stress state. And what I've noticed is if you actually stress your body, like in our case where it's like a combat style, how much further does it push the barrier of your capacity to be stressed?
And I think that's something too that not everybody understands that at all. And I'm just like, oh shit, I need to do that a little bit more, you know?
Well, we talk to a lot of people who it's like, I didn't do jujitsu for like 3 days and I become irritable.
Yeah.
Because when your body is not dealing with that stress, so it's like, man, I've dealt with this crazy stress. Everything else seems inferior. Like in terms of stressing you out. A theory of why we dream and why we dream sometimes horrible things is because if you can go through the sleep, like the world is a scary place, especially for like hunter-gatherers. And if you dreamt of horrible things, when you wake up, you're like, oh, it's not so bad, even though it might be that bad. That's kind of like the thing we do. If you like are able to run a marathon, then running a few miles isn't that bad. So when you put yourself through extreme stressors like jujitsu, where you're having like, this is your space right here, and you're like, oh, I gotta just breathe right here. You know, and someone's trying to strangle you, but you're like, that doesn't stress you out anymore. What else in the world is gonna stress you out? And so think about there's, all these things that have the potential to stress you out and take you away from your humanity. But becoming a martial artist pushes that boundary back.
Yeah.
And so not only do you have this physical boundary to defend yourself, you know, in physical altercations, but you also are building your mental barrier of what's able to take you away from your humanity.
Yeah. And I think it's really good because you do this in class, but one of the things that you did was like creating that outside environment that's just chaotic and
Yeah.
loud and uncomfortable, because of course it's going to be uncomfortable when everybody's watching you because you have like a kill circle pretty much.
Yes.
But like when you're creating that overstimulant, like we do have to learn how to like bring it back in, even if it's like overstimulant with the light or like with the sun in our face. Really, like you're gonna have to learn how to navigate that too.
Yeah,
Is
you're right.
that-
That's an excellent point. It's like forcing yourself to navigate the overstimulation. Right.
Distractions.
And we talk about that with risky play. Like
Oh,
kids,
yes,
when we're
yeah.
young kids, it's important that we do scary things. And we actually found out that padded playgrounds are like the most likely to get
Injuries.
serious injuries.
Yeah.
Is because kids don't register that they could be hurt.
Yeah.
And what turns out in risky play is when they get themselves to a place of being uncomfortable, there's nothing that's going to save them. So their brain has to like, how am I going to get out of this? And it sees itself through to the other side rather than being saved. So it's
Yeah.
like they get to a point where they're like, this is bad. They get saved from it. And
Yeah.
then their body's like, oh, that was a danger. I should have been scared of that. And some people say less risky play has led to perhaps a lot more adult onset anxieties.
I would agree with.
It's something similar to
Yeah.
that. We see that here. It's like you need to put yourself in a stressful situation, an overstimulated situation, and see yourself to the end of it to show your brain, yeah, it was stressful, but it's okay on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And so like if something horrible were to happen, like we have 4 kids.
Yeah.
Imagine if something horrible started happening to us, something bad happens. The quicker I go into a fight or flight, the worse things are going to be.
Yes.
Because I'm not going to be able to see everything for what it is. Because I practice at putting myself in uncomfortable situations to stay calm, figure out what I can and cannot do, what's going to be beneficial, not beneficial.
Yeah.
Staying in my human part of the brain where I've stored my strategy, where I've stored my rationality. I want to stay there.
Yeah.
You know, and I think being a martial artist, you know, they just view us as kind of brutes sometimes.
Yeah, just like rough and tumble, just like, oh, yeah, let's get it. Like, you know, that's how I think a lot of people view it. But then, like, they come and they're like, oh, there's no way I could do that. It's like, yeah, girl, you could. I mean, she's like, well, I'm 40. I'm like, we have 50-year-old over there.
Yeah.
She's still killing it.
Yeah.
It's your doubt. And it's putting yourself in a very uncomfortable
Yeah.
situation.
And that to say exactly, to build on it, that's why I think a lot of the best martial artists are the most unassuming people in the world.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, because they're less likely to get triggered. They're less likely to get stressed out. They're
Yeah.
less likely to engage you in a physical altercation. It's like the more they know, the less they want to use.
And if you watch those matches, like you watch people in MMA and different types of martial arts, and you see when they start to lose their temper or their ego does start to play a factor, versus like you come in here and you see some of these black belts in jiu-jitsu and you're like, do they have emotions? Because they're just so calm throughout. They just flow from each thing, grabbing each thing. But then you obviously can pick up the intensity.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
This is something that you just made me think of. I know that MMA fighters and boxers and stuff, like they'll put on a big show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To
that's
like,
true.
yo, I'm going to kick your ass. And they have these rivalries.
Yeah.
Right? But that builds up the show.
Yeah,
But
that's
if
part of it,
They
too.
look like they're unhinged. Like
Yeah.
they're an animal that can't be controlled. But you look at Mike Tyson and his trainer.
Yeah.
He had the utmost respect for his trainer. Like he would never disrespect that. And so he could go over to this guy and say that he's going to kill him, like break
Yeah.
beat Allah. And then at the
Yeah.
same time go to his trainer that he could easily destroy. And he has that fortitude, that hierarchical understanding.
Respect of the art because of the person who taught them and the
Exactly.
teacher.
And they all have this respect and intention towards the martial art itself. So even if it's not towards the outside world, it is to their coaches.
Yeah.
It is to the martial art and the structure of what the martial art is and that discipline and what is being a martial artist. It's the thing that made them the most human. When you do those fights, it makes you feel so alive. Like Mike Tyson is still doing fights because that's what makes him feel real.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, like, because I did train some kickboxing for a while, and like getting punched in the face, it's like, yeah, that's a feeling you don't like. When you get rocked, you're like, oh, okay. Like some of those feelings, like punching somebody too and being in the fight, and those, like, I remember just that energy of transfer energy. It's like, whoa, this feels good. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, let's keep going, you know? But some people, obviously, it's like learning to not, but it took a lot of navigation for
Yeah.
that, for sure.
And
you know?
so in Stoicism, they say like the obstacle is the way or becomes the way.
Yeah.
The thing that you're most scared of needs to be the thing that you're best at, because you don't need things in life that control you or dictate you
Yeah.
or determine the pattern of your life. And like for me, I thought getting punched in the face, when I was a kid, I was so scared of getting punched in the face. And then a couple times when I was a kid, I got rocked in the face and I thought I was like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
No,
And
yeah.
then I got into wrestling and I got into karate and other things where they sparred and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I can navigate this. And I was no longer scared of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even though it sucks,
Yeah.
it's not like I'm deathly afraid. And so if someone was
Yeah.
trying to bully me or something like that, I could handle that because I had navigated that situation. I went to the other side of it and I realized, though it may have sucked, I'm okay.
And that's like the same of somebody like running straight at you, like zombie apocalypse, running straight at you, like, oh shit, you know, like you know how to move your body,
Yeah.
because and you're not afraid of something coming at you, and that there's so many, like you see kids where they like, oh, they start falling and they like fall backwards because they're unaware. But like getting your feet back up, getting back to the
Yeah.
fighter stance, and like getting,
Yeah.
you know, in a dominant position, learning how to fall to
Yes.
get back up.
So many people
Yeah.
don't know how to fall.
It's so, and I feel bad because you're like, oh, you're going to break something.
I talk about this a lot, but when I was at boot camp, it was like my first
yeah.
time around. You were getting people from all over the world, all over the country, from not having dads, you know, having two dads, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you
All
got
the
a lot of
things.
people all forced to interact.
Navigate each other.
Yeah. And for long durations of time, you
Yeah.
really got to know these people. And some of those people fell and just landed on their face. And it's like, why didn't you brace yourself? You know what I mean? It's you. It's like,
Yeah.
what the? And it's like you realize some of these people have never fallen.
Yeah.
And so-
it's really sad.
Yeah. But it's I'm glad they're in the
Yeah.
army and they started to get it.
Yeah.
But like you need to make your kids fall. But if you're an adult, make yourself fall. Get to the point where it's like you know how to fall.
Yeah.
To get yourself back up, right? It's not about avoiding the fall. It's about how you get back up every time.
Exactly.
And so bringing this full circle, it's like what makes you a martial artist? It's like this expansion that you can't really put your finger on it. You know, where you
Yeah.
can't just say it's one sentence. It expands. Like you notice why a lot of these people have that self-confidence? It's not necessarily because what they can physically handle. It's because what they, like their mental capacity to take on the rest of the world without being affected
Yeah.
or impacted
Yeah.
is enormously liberating
Yeah.
and empowering,
Yeah.
especially for women. And I love that I can call myself a martial artist. And so I take being a martial artist with a ton of conviction.
And I think it's crazy because like owning a gym and like when people come in, they're like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And then you like start to like, okay, you're going to learn all these different things. Oh, by the way, we have an ice bath. Oh, by the way, we kind of do yoga. It's like a whole thing. You know, it's not just like an exercise.
Yeah.
It's that too, but
It's a byproduct.
yeah, like it's like this whole big world that I can't explain to you in just one spot right now, unfortunately. Like, come on in, jump on into the
You
water.
got to join the cult. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like
Hashtag not a cult.
hashtag not a cult. Yeah.
But it's a beautiful
Maybe a
thing.
cult.
Yeah, a little bit, maybe a little culty.
No.
But like we just know how good it makes us feel.
Yeah.
It doesn't require you to believe in anything. It's like get the proof yourself.
Yeah.
You know, come try it out. It will do these things.
Yeah.
And like we're not special. We
No.
just did it.
Just
And we did
did
it
it.
for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And so how does jiu-jitsu relate then to being a martial artist? And what's that marriage?
Yeah.
And what I would say is that there's 3 facets of jiu-jitsu, if I could say. My extraction from my experience is that there is self-defense jiu-jitsu. So it's like you and me are going and one of us is walking out of here. Like that's the assumption.
Yeah.
I'm walking out of here. There's that jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Then there's competition jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Where that's a lot more athletic. It's about getting your hand raised.
Yeah.
Tournaments and various other promotions or competitions, you have to play to the rule set that they dictate. It's a different realm. Like maybe in a competition, the rule set favors this, so I might be inverting a bunch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But on the streets, I'm never inverting. I would say the third and the most important part of jiu-jitsu is the martial arts aspect of jiu-jitsu. I almost call it like the purity of jiu-jitsu, where it's nothing but submissions. We don't consider anything. We get these soft mats, right?
Yeah.
We find submissions in any way, shape, or form. You know, we find, oh, you can get it here by doing this. And it's all about almost like the exploitation of how deep can we get in here and like mine out the beauty of jiu-jitsu, take everything else away from it.
Yeah.
One thing, if you only do self-defense jiu-jitsu, it will not make you a better martial artist, and it will not make you a competitor
Yeah.
in jiu-jitsu
Yeah.
or competition-based jiu-jitsu. If you only do competition jiu-jitsu, that won't necessarily make you better martial artists, but it most definitely, in my opinion, will not make you better self-defense based jiu-jitsu, like survival-based jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
If like your instinct is to like berimbolo in a
Yeah.
life or death situation, some idiot who has the capacity to punch you, you know what I mean, while your
Yeah.
head's next to the concrete might
Yeah.
win that battle.
Yeah.
And we've kind of
exactly.
seen this. But if you go completely to the purity of jiu-jitsu, practice martial arts jiu-jitsu, I think it benefits both
Yeah.
avenues. And so if you really take on jiu-jitsu as a martial artist, I think those people end up having the best competition jiu-jitsu, and I think they also have the best intention in self-defense jiu-jitsu. The big takeaway from this is jiu-jitsu is a martial art. What is a martial art, and what does it mean to be a martial artist? And hopefully we've dove into that a little bit as a good basis for a good episode.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
I think so. Yeah.
And how does jiu-jitsu relate to that martial art? Where's its relationship to being in the martial arts realm?
And I just kind of want to add a little point because, like, one of the parents last night said to me, she goes, like, have you been doing this, like, your whole life? I'm like, no, actually, I haven't. And just, like, people realizing that, like, this is not something, like, you have to start when you're a kid in order to get into. Like, you can jump into this any stage. It's your practice. It's what you make of it. And
Exactly.
so learning from that, but just learning, I didn't have to be into martial arts my whole life in order to be where I'm at today on the mat. It's just a misconception. Like, people just don't know what they don't know.
There's a Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now.
Yeah.
Right? It's natural for them to feel that way. What ends up happening in evolutionary biology is it's not good to be bad at something as an adult. By the time you're an adult, you should be an expert in your craft and what you contribute to society and the community, because you messing up could be a life or death situation.
Very
and
true.
so it's like, you can't fucking hold a spear, my guy. Like, you know.
We are in trouble. You're at the front of the line.
But we don't need to worry about it. It's an irrational fear now. So once you get over it, and that's the other thing, is like, we need to get out of the animal aspect and remain human, right?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
at least pursue that as much as possible. So it's like, taking on a new skill, the best time to start is now. And you're not just doing it to, like I said, to defend yourself. You're not just doing it to get in shape. You're doing it because you're becoming a martial artist. And what is a martial artist, as we discussed? It's this expansion of not being so stressed out by life, right? Being testing yourself mentally. The obstacle is the way. All of these things are actually why you're getting involved. Your byproduct is that you're getting in better shape.
Yeah.
Your byproduct is that you're more relaxed. Your byproduct is you're getting less stressed out. Your byproduct is that you can defend yourself. So like, these are byproducts of becoming a martial artist. So I think that if you're thinking about getting in jiu-jitsu, or thinking about getting involved in jiu-jitsu, or you just started, or maybe you've been in for a while, I think you should really engage and put intention into what jiu-jitsu is for you, and saying, what is being a martial artist do for you?
Yeah.
And really take that to its core. Because remember, we're all an umbrella of martial artists.
Yeah.
And it's like, it all navigates to the same core. It's like, how do you become, and how do you express, and how do you experience the best human existence? The way you find that, I think, being a martial artist in jiu-jitsu is a very, very good avenue, a very dependable avenue to reach that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to kind of cut it off for our first episode. What makes us a martial artist, or what makes you a martial artist?
Yeah.
This is the Jiu-Jitsu Juice podcast with X Martial. Make sure to go grab your gear at xmartial.com. If you want a discount code, use Chad the Dad. I love being with X Martial and being part of the X Martial team. I'm an X Martial athlete, and you're going to see a whole lot more of these, right? So go to the link tree that's going to be in the bio down below in the description, and make sure to comment. Tell us what topic of jiu-jitsu that you want us to talk about in the comment section.
Yeah.
Let us know if you ran into maybe a situation weird on, like, let's say you got in a physical altercation, or let's talk about something happened at the gym, or just maybe your ideas or your unique perceptions of what jiu-jitsu is, and we'll talk about it here on the channel. Make sure to go check out the 1% Better Everyday Club. That's our community forum, our online forum, where you can ask us questions as well as the comments. And please help us grow the channel. We're just starting this, and we're going to be going hard with it. So, or we're going to have an episode every week, and different styles of videos coming. So at least 2 to 3, maybe even more videos coming at you every week. And make sure to go follow me, Chad the Dad, Instagram. _BJJ.
Oh, Jade the Babe.
And Jade the Babe.
BJJ.
Yeah. Go check out the description and the link tree. Everything's going to be in there. We love you guys. And X Marshall loves you guys. And we'll see you on the next episode.